Modern cars love connectivity. They'll connect to your phone, to the internet, to the manufacturer, which is great. Yeah, but that also means that nefarious types could connect to your car. And that could be pranksters that are just looking to lock you out, or it could be rogue advertisers trying to beam ads directly to your radio, or it could be hackers stealing all your data from the phone book in the car, or even to your phone if it's connected, or even more dangerously, to carjackers and terrorists that could take control of your car remotely and leave you nothing but a helpless passenger in it. Yep, it's possible. And to beat this danger off, we are going to have to lose some of our favorite cars, some of our favorite sports cars, like the Porsche 718 Cayman and Boxsters. Oh yeah, they're going because of cyber threats. I'll explain everything right after this.
A brown car guy.
Do you remember the scene from the 8th Fast and Furious movie, The Fate of the Furious? In it, the hacker, Cypher, she takes over a ton of cars and turns them into hordes of zombie psycho cars, causing utter chaos in the city. Now, obviously that's fiction, and they really pushed it to extremes there, but there was some element of feasible reality in it. So imagine the dangers and consequences of something like that happening. Now, the United Nations has certainly been considering. So now we are seeing cybersecurity regulations and, well, their profound impact on both new and existing vehicles. The new laws that are coming into play means that there's an unprecedented shift that could mean the discontinuation of certain models altogether. A new cybersecurity regulation, UNECE 155, let's call it Regulation 155, comes from the United Nations, and it requires car makers to introduce safeguards against hackers. Now, this was first introduced in July 2022, laying down the stringent cybersecurity standards for the automotive industry, but the stricter rules for car cyber safety apply from the 7th of July this year, which is 2024, and it will become mandatory for all vehicles produced, ensuring that they are fortified against cyber threats. Now, this global initiative aims to protect the privacy and safety of drivers in an era where cars are more connected than ever, but it does mean that some car models are already disappearing from the market without direct successors. So what is Regulation 155 really all about? Well, it's specifically designed to protect against a range of cybersecurity threats that modern vehicles face due to their increasing connectivity and reliance on electronic systems. This regulation, even like drive-by-wire, because most of these cars aren't even mechanically connected anymore. So this regulation mandates the implementation of robust cybersecurity management systems, CSMS for short. They want this implemented by car manufacturers, aiming to safeguard vehicles through their life cycles against cyber risks. So what are we specifically talking about? So it's some examples for you. Number one, unauthorized access. This prevents unauthorized users from gaining access to the vehicle's networks and its systems. Number two, data privacy and protection, ensuring that personal data collected and stored by the vehicle, such as your location, your driving habits, your personal information, all of that is protected against unauthorized access and hence breaches. Number three, remote hacking. Now, this one addresses the potential for hackers to basically remotely exploit the vulnerability in the car's software, which could lead to control over the vehicle's operations, as well as, of course, disabling the security and getting access to the car. Now, this could include the possibility of someone hijacking the car remotely, and of course, it has serious implications for your safety whilst you're in the car. Number four, software integrity. Guaranteeing the integrity of a vehicle software, of the vehicle software and firmware, including ensuring that the software updates and patches securely delivered and are installed without introducing further or new vulnerabilities, sort of backdoors and access points, if you like, that hackers could then exploit. We want to make sure that that doesn't happen, and that's part of these rulings. Number five, prevention of malfunctions. So this one ensures that cyber attacks do not cause a vehicle system to malfunction, which could lead to accidents, of course, and impair the vehicle safety features.
Brown car guy.
So is it true? Can someone actually hack or hijack your car remotely? Yeah, it is possible. Vehicles are becoming more and more connected and reliant on electronic systems for functionality, safety features. I mean, if you think about the fact that even right now, you've got driver assistance, driver ADAS, driver assistance systems in the car that can do things like you can have autopilot on the motorway, in which case the car is taken over driving for a little bit, or you have cars that can park themselves or just maneuver short spaces by remote. This is already possible, so the cars can already do that. So the fact is that they have this functionality, and then that means that there is the potential for remote hacking and hijacking. Hackers could exploit vulnerabilities in a vehicle's software to gain unauthorized control of the various systems. And this could range, from minor disruptions like changing the radio station to severe threats such as, like I've mentioned, taking control of the vehicle's steering, braking systems, even the acceleration system. Now, the UN R145's comprehensive approach requires manufacturers to assess and manage cybersecurity risks continuously, ensuring the vehicles are protected against such threats from the design phase right through to the end of their life, so the full life cycle. By doing so, the regulation aims to significantly reduce the likelihood of successful cyber attacks on those vehicles, your vehicles in essence. You have a part to play as well, because to safeguard against these risks as well, it's important for you as the vehicle owner to ensure that the vehicle software is up to date. Be very careful about connecting it to untrusted devices or downloading any applications onto the vehicle, and follow the manufacturer's recommendation for cybersecurity. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Are you enjoying the video? Well, make sure you've punched the like button. It helps. But how is it affecting car makers? What's actually happening? Well, several car makers, including Porsche and VW, are thinning their model ranges, and some models can no longer be ordered. And among these, among the cars that are affected, for example, with Volkswagen, is the Volkswagen Up and the Transporter T6.1. So according to a Volkswagen spokesperson, the Up model hasn't been produced since November last year anyway, and deliveries of the last vehicle will continue until the middle of this year, so it shouldn't really affect that. The website reveals that the Transporter can now, I mentioned the T6.1, can no longer be ordered. The quote was, "All vehicles that can be built by the end of June have long since had a buyer. We are completely sold out." So those ranges are not going to be affected because they're already run out anyway, and now they've been discontinued. But it also affects the Porsche Macan, but of course that's also been discontinued because now they've launched a brand new all-electric one to replace it. However, it will also hit the Porsche 718, Cayman, and Boxster. Now, the German car maker has confirmed that the very same regulation, R155, will essentially kill off the existing 718 pair, the Boxster and the Cayman. Porsche's most accessible petrol-powered sports car is bidding farewell 2 years before its electric replacement arrives because of this regulation. A Porsche spokesman for the 718 said, I think it's Oliver Hilger, and he sort of confirmed this to Motor One magazine in Germany and reported it, which I think was reported last week. Now, what he said is that it won't entirely kill the mid-engine sports car range because the GT4 RS and the Boxster Spider RS will be able to continue because they are low volume production. The trouble is that with the 718, which is a high volume car, they'll have to completely re-engineer it, and it's costly, and they say that it's unreasonable to do that this late in the life cycle, especially when there's a new one around the corner. Now, this thing was actually launched. Actually, you'd think it's a relatively new car. I still think of it as a relatively new car. But I attended the launch of this thing at the Yas Marina Circuit in Abu Dhabi, loving the handling of this thing. That was actually way back in 2016, so it's been around for 8 years. So it was supposed to go another 2 years to get it to 10 years, but it's going to be replaced. So those are both being replaced in 2025 with a new EV version. Porsche initially admitted they wanted to sell it alongside the electric car, the petrol one and the electric car side by side, but of course they've had to kill off that idea. They said that in the European Union, some states that apply EU legislation, the combustion-powered 718 models will not be available indefinitely. So, in other words, they're not available. The main reason for this is the general safety regulation of the European Union, including cybersecurity, to which the platform cannot be converted. Any models that do not meet these requirements will no longer be eligible for registration in the EU after the beginning of July 2024 this year. This applies not only to the 718 models with an internal combustion engine, but to all models from all manufacturers, and this is regardless of whether it's an e-vehicle or one with an internal combustion engine. I think they're making the point that this doesn't just affect EVs or petrol cars or vice versa. It affects all cars that don't have those protection against cyber threats already installed or already developed into the car. The quote goes on, as a result, sale of the 718 models with internal combustion engines is discontinued in the EU and some states that apply EU legislation from now on, thereby ensuring that the vehicles can be delivered to customers registered by the deadline. So anything before then, if you've ordered your car and it's due to get there before 7th of July, you will get it. In regions where the relevant EU legislation is not applied, the 718 models with an internal combustion engine can remain available for longer. So it doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to stop building them, it's just that they can't sell them in Europe anymore. The quote continues, implementation of the directive not only requires adjustments to the technical implementation, for example, the control units, but essentially it also a change to the process in the development phase. For example, the management systems will have to be developed and certified with regard to cybersecurity. The management and documentation of cybersecurity risks are tracked, structured, and formalized over the life cycle of the vehicle. I'm continuing with the quote. All this could not be taken into account in the development of the 718 combustion models, as none of these requirements were known or applicable at the time, and it is not possible to do this in reverse. So basically, it's going to be too much hassle, too much effort, too much expense to do it, so they're just killing the model ranges. The process now required by UNR 155 could not be implemented because they were not yet known and applicable when the 718 platform was developed. But this doesn't mean that older vehicles are not per se secure. When it comes to current models, we regularly check the cybersecurity of our products and work together with global security community using a publicly accessible interface. I guess what they're trying to do there, this is still Porsche saying this, is reassure people that, okay, if you have another one of our cars, say the Cayman, say the 911, don't worry, that one, we still have protection in it. And also don't forget that some of those model ranges are far more profitable. They sell far more of them, so it's worth them spending that money. Again, with the Cayman and the Boxster, the sales were not quite as, I don't think the volume was as big as some of those other cars. Now, this does affect other European car makers as well. And they're discontinuing some models. So Audi has actually, obviously we already know that the TT has been killed off, but they've also closed the order books for the R8 sports cars. We knew that was going to happen. Mercedes will stop producing the two-seater smart EQ42, and Renault will no longer produce the Zoe, the electric Zoe. Wow. Now, estimates by consulting firm McKinsey & Co. reveal that automaker spending on cybersecurity because of these, well, partially because of these regulations, would increase from $4.9 billion in 2020 to $9.7 billion in 2030, corresponding to an annual growth of more than 7%. Whoa, that's a lot of money to be spending on securing the cars from cyber threat, but I guess it's kind of important.
Brown car guy.
Now, this is European legislation, and it has put the brakes on sales of cars that cannot comply in the European Union, but it's worth saying that the rules do not currently affect sales in the United States. So consumers, so if you're watching this in North America, and in fact many other regions in the world, I'm guessing that applies to the Middle East as well, you will still be able to buy the Porsche Boxster and the Cayman, for example, but it's just that in Europe we cannot. So back to Europe, and the other thing is, it's not just cars. Even motorcycles will be affected. Actually, it's not just motorcycles. The proposed regulation changes will affect, I quote, motorcycles, scooters, electric bicycles with speeds exceeding 25 kilometers per hour, says FEMA, Federation of European Motorcyclist Associations. It appears that the plan is to only apply these cybersecurity regulations to all products with digital elements available in the market. So some kind of connectivity, I guess. So in other words, your Honda Rebel 500 is basic enough that it probably won't be affected. However, if you have a Honda Goldwing, then it's a different case because it has adaptive cruise control. Or if you have a bike with smartphone integration and vehicle-to-vehicle communication tech. Now, this regulation may also impact cars that have been adapted for drivers with special needs. Apparently, the complexity of navigating all of the rules and regulations around these guidelines will affect vehicle aids and adaptations for disabled drivers. The challenges that the adaptation industry faces because of these regulations is increasing because of the growth of electric vehicles and the shift towards autonomous technology, which is, driverless technology. And now that's compounded by these new regulations, which of course require that, the cars are secure from cyber threats. So those that work in creating these adaptive vehicles to provide special needs drivers with their independent mobility warn that these new regulations will make it harder for the adaptation industry to adapt standard vehicles for disabled drivers, potentially excluding them from the improved safety benefits as the industry struggles to ensure that the products stay compatible.
Brown car guy.
So what about drivers of existing vehicles, particularly models that were produced before these regulations were announced? There's got to be a growing concern about cybersecurity, right? So the UN 155 R145 primarily affects vehicle types from July 2022 onwards, but driver might worry about their car's vulnerabilities, and I think it's fair to do so because remember that The Fate of the Furious, that movie I referenced earlier, that came out in 2017. That was way before these rules were drawn up. So what can you do to ensure your vehicle is protected? It's limited. For owners of newer models that have, these connectivity technology, what you should do really is to make sure that you're up to date with the manufacturer's updates and any patches and stuff like that. And if there's been any recalls, make sure that you've taken it in for the recall. It's likely that manufacturers would maybe release further software patches and updates to address any vulnerabilities that they find for these models that are already on the road. So you can steadily check with them. If you're still worried about it and it's really a concern for you, then you could consult a cyber security expert. Meanwhile, I would suggest that just don't connect your phone to the car. Remove any accessible SIM cards so that they can't connect to the internet. And maybe look at exploring retrofitting newer, more secure infotainment systems to your car. See if that's possible. Alternatively, you could do like I do and just drive an old 80s car that doesn't have any of this tech on it and doesn't connect to anything. And that would certainly keep your car safe. And it's purely mechanical. All the driving controls, the steering is mechanical, the brake, the gearbox, the clutch, it's all mechanical. So there's very little to no chance that anybody could take control of that car remotely. So I look forward to hearing your comments on this and good luck out there. Check this out, guys. It's my book. It's my first novel and it's written for car fans like you. It's a fun political action thriller. It's full of cool cars and spectacular action. Get your copy now at Amazon.com.